But Brandon, let's change gears. Going from the Big Ten, we're going to add 2, go to the Big 12. And the thing we're looking at from the Big 12, I know that last week people are going to say, well, you guys already looked at the Big 12 and the college football playoff. But in this one, we're going to look at one team, and that is the West Virginia Mountaineers. They have 3 games left. TCU at Oklahoma State, which we're going to pick that one, and Brandon, we'll see if the curse will
be
picking
that one. I don't know if I'll do it.
And then the game at the end, the regular season game to end it all against Oklahoma in Morgantown. This team getting a big win this week, going into Austin, Texas, beating the Tejas, or the Texas Longhorns, 42-41. So, Brandon, what I'm going to ask you to start this is, yes, this is going to affect the college football playoff. That will be in this discussion. But will West Virginia win the Big 12?
I think that they have a shot. I think especially after seeing what happened this past weekend with Oklahoma, while yes, they did win, but they too needed a come from behind victory to win that one. I think that Oklahoma and West Virginia, if you look at it, I would say right now it's 50-50. It's 50-50 between Oklahoma or West Virginia to win it, because both teams have shown that they can give you a defensive play. Both teams have showed you that it'll be no defense and all offense. Both teams have showed you that they have comebacks in them and some very timely passing and catching by their quarterbacks. And whether it's Kyler Murray for Oklahoma, whether it's going to be Will Grier for West Virginia, they are very similar. They're very similar. I think that West Virginia, though, does have a very good chance of being able to win the Big 12. This win against Texas was huge. And I think, if nothing else, because it was on the road. It was on the road. And I know that it hurt you. You weren't happy about it. But how about the call at the end of the game to go for 2? To go for 2 to win the game.
I mean, it's one of those where basically you go for overtime, you go to win the game, and that was one where when I heard what had happened, because this one was happening while we were recording podcasts that day, I absolutely was like, what did they just do? Like, what did they do to end the game? Like, that is some cojones, Brandon, that I don't even have.
And this is after 3 timeouts. 2 that were taken by Texas, 1 that was taken by West Virginia. All this time to think, to rethink, to think again, and you still go for 2.
Sometimes the best thing is to just turn the brain off, go with the gut.
Yeah, and that's exactly
what they did. Turn the brain off, go with the gut.
What Dana Holgerson did. And I love the move. I would have loved the move if it was flipped the opposite way.
Yeah.
If it was Texas that did it and they won the game, I'd be like, lost another one to Ricky. But
yeah,
wow, great job, gutsy, confident, great win. But it went the other way. It went the other way for West Virginia.
I'm going to agree but disagree with you when you said that it's a 50-50 shot between Oklahoma and West Virginia. I'm going to agree that it's a 50-50 shot, but I'm going to disagree in the fact that I think West Virginia is going to win the Big 12. Like, that, yes, it's 50-50, but really it should be like 55-45 in favor of West Virginia. And the reason why, you're probably sitting there going, what did you just say? Like, how could it be 50-50, but somebody just hear me out. The thing that is weird about this is if you look at common opponents, there are 2 teams in conference, minus Texas, I'm going to get to them in a second, that have played both of these teams tough. The Red Raiders and the Cyclones. The Mountaineers, they have lost to the Cyclones. They went ahead and beat the Red Raiders. Whereas on the other side with Oklahoma, they beat both of them. They beat Iowa State. They beat Texas Tech. The one that comes in is Texas. Yes, Texas played both of these teams close. West Virginia able to get the win. I know it was a gutsy call to go for it on 2 to win by 1, but they beat Texas. Oklahoma did not beat Texas. And that to me is right now based off common opponents. That's number one. I'm giving the edge to West Virginia. Yeah, Oklahoma beat Texas Tech and beat Iowa State, where West Virginia lost to Iowa State. But West Virginia was able to beat Texas.
But
and that's one thing Oklahoma wasn't.
Can I jump in there really quickly?
I was just going to say one last thing. The second point, look at the non-conference games. West Virginia has looked good in all their non-conference games. Oklahoma struggled against Army and had to go to overtime. I think this Oklahoma team, much like the Ohio State team that we talked about earlier, is more susceptible to the upset than West Virginia. And West Virginia, when they go to play each other on that Friday, November 23rd, West Virginia is going to be playing pressure-free because they know that all the pressure is going to be on Oklahoma and not on West Virginia.
I just want to jump in when you were talking about the game that they both played against Texas. Both times, this game was at Texas, but that other game was at the Orange Bowl. So it was a neutral site for
the Red River.
For the Red River rivalry, which was Oklahoma and Texas. This one was actually at Texas, so home game for Texas. West Virginia won. They won by 1 point. The Oklahoma Sooners, they lost. They lose by a field goal. I guess I look at it as, yeah, they lost, but they kept it close. They were able to fight back. This is not where I mentioned in the Michigan and Ohio State segment that Ohio State just beat Nebraska 36-31, but then looked at the same game that Michigan played. Michigan won 56-10. That, I think you can compare it because Michigan absolutely blew out Nebraska, whereas Ohio State, very close game.
That's me.
This game, for both of them, close game. I don't think that you can look at it and go, well, West Virginia, they won in a blowout, and Oklahoma, they lost to Texas in a close game because that wasn't it. Or they got blown out by Texas, let's say. It's West Virginia winning by 1 and Oklahoma losing by 3. 48-45 loss versus a 42-41 win. All I'm saying is that I don't think that that's where you can really look at that game and say, if Oklahoma would have gone down the 3 scores that they were, and that's the final, and you lose 48-21, then I'm looking at it going, it's not good. But here it's different, in my opinion, because it is close. And I don't look at this game and go, well, one beat Texas, one lost. That's how it's going to go. The one's going to beat the other. I think we're going to see a very similar 42-41 type or 48-45 type when these two teams meet. Or even a 52 to 48 type of thing. That's what I envision for Oklahoma West Virginia final game of the season.
And I think it's going to be close. I don't know if just it's how I talk and the tone I use, but half the time I feel like when I do make these comparisons that in your head you're thinking, okay, Ricky thinks the Mountaineers are going to blow out the Sooners.
No, that's not what I think, but I'm just trying to clarify, especially for our viewers, that you're not taking it just based off of one game. Well, I mean, but I'm trying to clarify that, but I think you are taking it based off of one game. That's where I'm trying to say
it's not,
not in this instance.
It's not everything. Like, yes, the situations of each game are different. Yes, they even have to go out there and play the dang game. I get that. The thing I look at is the thing with Oklahoma, and this is what I was getting at, is with West Virginia. This was probably, I'm going to say, the second time this season they've had to face adversity in some sense. The first game being Iowa State, they lost. And then this one, they came back and won it. Where I have watched Oklahoma this season, the Texas game, I watched the Army game. I see this team, And even this past week, I know they get the win against Texas Tech, but I look at it and I go, and I'm going to bring it down to the quarterbacks. If Will Grier can play like he did this week, have 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, West Virginia will win the game. What have I noticed about every single game of the 3 I mentioned for Oklahoma? Well, the first one against Army, when I look at Kyler Murray, only 165 yards. He only threw the ball 15 times that game. 3 touchdowns and a pick. The Texas game, threw for 300 yards. He had 4 touchdowns. Had that pick. Oklahoma against Texas Tech, he had 3 touchdowns, but what did he also have? 2 picks. My point is, in this sense, whichever quarterback is mistake-free, that team will win the game. And I feel like at home in Morgantown, and also what I've seen based this year, West Virginia is going to come into that game at home feeling less pressure, and I have a feeling that we're going to look at it, and at the end of the game, it's either going to be one of 2 things. West Virginia and Will Grier made a play late when they had to set up a field goal to go for 2 to win the game, or we're going to be looking at it going, man, if Kyler Murray didn't have those 2 picks, Oklahoma probably should have won. That's going to be one of those 2 things is what we're going to say after that game happens to end the regular season.
And this is why I think that it's a 50-50, because both of these teams have been very, very good. Both of these teams have also shown their weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And it's, yes, they'll go for 350 yards and 3 TDs, but they'll also match it with 3 interceptions. That's not what you want to see, but that is what both quarterbacks, Kyler Murray and Will Grier, as good as they have been all season long, to get their teams to be 5-1 in conference and only 1 loss total on the season. They're obviously great, but they have been mistake prone in certain games at certain times when they don't need to be, and that's where this past weekend Oklahoma was going down. Kyler Murray was turning the ball over. Things weren't good early. But Kyler Murray is also good because he's able to bring his team back, rally the troops, get things on the right path, start scoring some touchdowns. Here they both also have running backs who can get into the game and start doing things if they choose to run the football. What I think is most interesting, and I'm being completely facetious, is that West Virginia and Oklahoma both have to play Oklahoma State, and I know who I'm picking in both of those games, so that's going to make it real interesting.
Well, here's a question I've got for you. Let's say Oklahoma, West Virginia win their next 2. Let's say you pick the Cowboys to win both of those games. Here's the question I want to ask you, because if I look at the college football playoff, and of course, we're recording this. This is going to come out the day after they come out with the rankings, but we are recording this on Monday night. That's when we record the podcast. And if we go off of last week's college football playoff rankings, Florida, these are all the teams that have lost above West Virginia. Florida 2 spots above. They lost to Mizzou. Should be below West Virginia this week. Kentucky lost to Georgia. They're about 4 spots ahead. It's going to be interesting to see if that's enough to make them fall compared to the West Virginia win over Texas, because they were above Texas by 4 games, but Kentucky loses as well. Then you have LSU, where I don't think LSU is going to fall that low. They'll probably fall out of the top 6, but not that low. My question for you is, by the end of the year, not just can West Virginia play themselves into the playoff, but even looking at the Big 12 standings, if both of these teams win their next 2 and they go into that last game, guess what's going to happen? If they win their next 2, it won't matter what happens in terms of the Big 12 won't happen what matters in that game because we're going to get a rematch the next week. So the thing I want to ask you is not only can West Virginia make it interesting and make a run for the college football playoff, do they have it in them to beat Oklahoma at home and then the next week beat them on a neutral site? Because that's probably where we're headed, is that West Virginia will play Oklahoma for the home field advantage, and then we'll play them the next week in the Big 12 title game.
Does Will Grier have 2 330-yard, 3 TD pass performances in a back-to-back?
That's what I'm asking you.
That's the question. And I think he's done it so many times this season, he absolutely does. But then you look on the other side and you say the same thing and ask the same thing for Kyler Murray. Does he? It's going to be what you said. It's going to come down to who turns the ball over, who's going to win the turnover margin there, and then who's going to be able to also have a ground game as well. Who's going to be able to, is it going to be Sermon on one side for Oklahoma, or on the other side for West Virginia? Is it going to be McCoy? Is it going to be Pedway? I mean, who's going to come to play there in the ground game? Because while yes, they are all air attack guys, they do like to use their ground game every once in a while. And if they have a big game and the air attack is potent, that team's going to win.
Well, I'm asking you, look into your crystal ball. Do I
see West Virginia doing both? Are you asking me, is West Virginia going to get into the playoff, or are you asking me, is West Virginia going to win that game and then be able to win
the second one? Do they have it in them? Do you see it at the end of it? College football aside, because if they beat Oklahoma twice, that's going to be a tall number, and that's going to be, I think, looked favorably into the eyes of the committee. Do you see West Virginia walking into or hosting Oklahoma, beating them, then the next week on a neutral site, beating them again? Do they have it in them, if you look into your crystal ball, to go 2-0 back-to-back against Oklahoma? Or will we see because the thing that I'm leaning towards is that neither of these teams are going to make the playoffs, because one's going to win on the regular season, and the other team's going to win in the Big 12 title game, and that's going to help neither of them in the playoff standings.
I'll go bold. I'll say yeah. I'll say yes, they do. The way they played against Texas, the way they wrapped up and finished that game, the way that they've played since they lost on the road at Iowa State, and they lost 30-14. They've come out, they beat Baylor at home 58-14. They go on the road to Texas, a tough place to play and a tough team to play. Texas is a good team this year. They win 42-41. They take a gamble. They drop a great play. Grier basically walks in untouched to the end zone to finish it off and end it with some final stuff going on with 10 seconds basically remaining. Yeah. You finish that out. You beat TCU at home. TCU is a team that's definitely dropped off. You go on the road. You beat the Cowboys. You beat Oklahoma State. You keep rolling like they are right now, and they feel really good after this Texas win on the road. I'm going to say they do.
You know what's the last thing I'm going to add, and this is absolutely hilarious? Bomani Jones was 110% correct. They were talking about either on High Noon or Highly Questionable about, is Texas back after they beat Oklahoma? And he goes, what, back to 3 losses? Like, that's what they're going to do, right? How many losses is Texas at after this last week? There are 3. So it looks like Texas may not be back like we thought they were. Any final thoughts before we move on to some coaches on the hot seat?
No, I think that the Big 12 has been actually pretty interesting this year, with one team not running away. Oklahoma for the last couple of years, it's been Oklahoma running away with it. There's been no competition. There's certainly competition this year. It's finally exciting again to be talking about the Big 12 and the way we're talking about them right now.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in that comment section. Can the Mountaineers upset the Sooners? Can they do it twice? And what do you think their college football playoff hopes will be? Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section.